Hello, my name is Lidia Rebecca Parra, and in this occasion, I'm going to talk about an interesting topic. The subject is language assessment. The topic is if a teacher's perceptions toward the application of validity and washback to improve teaching and learning. Well, continuing with this presentation, first, we found the index. The first part is general information, second, method, third, analysis and discussions, fourth, conclusion and recommendations, and fifth, references. The first part, general information. Well, in this part, we found the importance, the purpose, and the objectives, as well as the opinion of the diverse authors that support the idea of the idea that the teachers express in their interview. Okay, about the importance. Well, knowing and identify the main principle of language assessment is of vital importance because teachers constantly have to design instruments, techniques, procedures, and activities that allow them to assess the content effectively. Also, they have to give the appropriate feedback for the students can enhance their learning. The purpose of this study is to identify EFL teachers' perceptions toward the application of validity and washback to improve teaching and learning. The main objectives. The first objective is this document is focusing analyze the importance to apply the diverse principle of language assessment at the moment to apply an assessment process with students or learners. The second objective is focusing observe the diverse perceptions that have the English teachers toward the application of certain principles during their practice and collecting their experience and feelings toward this topic. In this part, we found also the opinion of some authors. For example, Kadir explained that this principle has the characteristics to assess the contents, taking into account that these contents were studied by the students. This principle also explains that a valid test is a test whose contents include all the things that the students have learned and practiced in the class. The second opinion, for example, Sumarsono explained that the principle of practicability is concerned with all aspects involved in making, giving, and scoring an assessment. Teachers and educators have to consider the principle at the moment to create an evaluation because they have to consider whether it is possible or practical to use it in our current teaching situation. Talking about the washback, well, the principle of washback is related to the impact that a test has on teaching and learning done in preparation for it. A washback extension is more beneficial for the students because it is focused in their motivation and follows a beneficial direction. This opinion is given by Green, 2013. Okay, now the second section refers method. In this part, we found settings and participants and procedures. Talking about the place, this survey is carried out in public and private high schools in the city of La Guardia that you observe in the picture. Okay, this survey is focused in 3 English teachers. Regarding the characteristics of the teachers, their age range from 24 to 59 years old, and their experience range between 1 and 22 years in teaching the English language. All English teachers have a bachelor's degree in English as well. The participants in this interview were two men and 1 woman. Okay, talking about the procedure. The first step in the process was to investigate and collect academic journal found in Google Scholarly. This survey or this study is focusing a method that following a qualitative approach, and is focusing teachers' interview as a technique and questionnaire as the main instrument. Okay, now continue with the third section, analysis and discussions. Well, in this part, we base this analysis in two main aspects. First, the opinion that the teacher expressed in the interview and our point of view or our reflection about or based in the opinion that the teachers giving in the interview. Okay, for example, about language assessment, teachers state that language teaching is the act of teaching, and language assessment refers to check all now knowing by an assessment. It is important because through the evaluation, the level of the knowledge acquired during the learning process is determined. Okay, that means they agree that language teaching is the act to apply different skills through activities with the aim to reach a certain objective of learning. This opinion is supported by the idea of the authors that consider of vital importance the principles of language assessment because teachers constantly have to design instruments, technique, procedures, and activities that allow them to assess the contents effectively as I mentioned before. Okay, now the next part about assessment learning. Teacher state that it is important, first, the importance. It is important to value the learning of the students to be able to fill in any gaps that they have not understand. Talking about the benefits, while they express the benefit include improve teacher-student relationship and improve attainment and achievement. And talking about their use, well, yes, for instance, design a test in which the students can demonstrate their knowledge. This is the opinion of the English teachers. Now, that show that the teachers value this aspect because allow them to reinforce any content that the students do not understand very well. Talking about the benefits, they agree that help them to review constantly the knowledge of the students acquired. Teachers have to overcome the challenge of creating a test that allow the students both things. First, learning contents, and second, having fun at the same time. Okay, now about the validity. Teachers say that validity is first importance. Validity is a criterion used to determine the importance of the empirical evidence. The benefits, while validity on assessment task means to design a test without contamination. In other words, for instance, a reading comprehension test should not require mathematical ability. In this case, no apply the validity. Okay, now the use. Well, they express, I use validity when I am designing assessment task. The task only needs knowledge of the material studied in class. Well, what indicate all this? Well, they consider important this principle because help them to determine the importance of the empirical evidence. Also, they have heard about this principle and they use it in their classrooms in the moments that they consider important to do it. Regarding the characteristics, they express that this means grading an assessment with the features that must contain the activities that the students learned. Okay, the first part is Washback. Teacher's opinion about Washback that it is important to apply Washback in the assessment of the task so that the learning is reinforced without empty spaces. Washback refers to give the explanation later a test or before a test. Okay, and about the use. Well, yes, for later an assessment task, I used to explain to the students how I should have done the task. Yes, all these opinions means teachers consider in the equal way, consider important to use of this principle to reinforce the contents that the students have learned. Talking about the characteristics, they say that this principle is resumed in the explanation before this. And referring to their use, they consider using it because it helps them to identify the strength, weakness of the students and to explain the contents or they must be in the task. Okay. Now, we follow in the next section for conclusion and recommendation. Well, this little study give us or provide us three important conclusions and three important recommendations. First, the English teachers knows and applies the validity and Washback principles during the development of this assessment because they consider important the application of these principles to obtain a successful assessment process. Second conclusion is teachers have a positive attitude toward the application of validity and Washback to improve teaching and learning. So they take advantage of all opportunities to apply these principles to create an innovative assessment process. The third and final conclusion is all English teachers perceive the usefulness of the validity and Washback in their practice because it allows them to organize their assessment in a good way. As a consequence, they remain motivated at the moment to prepare their assessment. Okay, this is the three main conclusions. Now, referring the recommendation, we found in the same way three recommendations. The first, the English teachers must expand the investigation and application of the validity and Washback principles for the students familiarize themselves with the contents that the teachers are going to assess. Second recommendation is it's essential that the institution and authorities must provide their teachers with training courses about the management of the principle of assessment. These courses must provide them with multiple opportunities to learn how to manage, how to use, and how to apply these principles. Okay, third recommendation. The English teachers must take advantage of the application of validity and Washback, mainly to improve teaching and learning. As a result, they will create a variety of activities that help them to provide the appropriate assessment process. Okay, and finally, in the 5 sections, we found the references that support the little literature review, the author opinions that we found in this study. Okay, in this part we found the references, 1, 2 to 5 references exactly that support this study. Okay, and it is all the explanation about this topic. In resume, well, we can observe that teachers express a good perception about this topic, about the use of validity in Washback, because they consider important to use these principles in their teaching practice at the moment when they have to prepare their assessment, and they demonstrate a good knowledge about these topics, and they are very interested in continue applying these principles in the future. Okay, it is all. Thank you so much for your attention.